This is where the fun begins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thursday morning calf chat. I caught myself there. How are you guys doing? And we do have some great topics to discuss here, going into Anakin Skywalker, and since Rogue Squadron has been the topic as of late, we'll go ahead and talk about them as well as cringe factors. Article about, and this goes back into Anakin. Disney's Darth Vader split changes Star Wars' most famous quote. So they're talking about Darth Vader or Anakin having a split personality in Disney and how it changes the famous quote in Empire Strikes Back. So we'll get into that here pretty soon. But first of all, good morning again, and share with me what's in your mug. What are you enjoying while you are visiting here with me on Coffee Chat and others? So we have Matt G here with all the cups of coffee there. And then Zim, the spot. Hello, everyone. And Chaos Man 17, hi there. And Matt's all, yo. And then we have Gordon, good morning as well. And those who our channel members that came in to do the watch party with me, and we got shut down by YouTube. It was my thing was suspended because of copyright, and once I took it down, the stream came back live. So we just discussed, and I had Tuscan Bob or Greg on with me, helping me out. So that was unfortunate, but thank you guys who came. Sorry about that. YouTube does have their copyright issues, and I figured since this is a private viewing, which is channel members only, that it would be okay. And I guess not. So I have to read further into all of that, what I can and cannot do on here. Maybe I'll take this to Rumble for a viewing of Clone Wars 03. Who knows? We'll see. Yes. And so go vote, you guys. Go vote. So since we're on the topic of Rogue Squadron, this is in the I combine them because then I'd have more than just 4, because I can only limit to 4. So I'm trying to get the top 4 of all the votes through the era of Rogue Squadron. And so I combined a New Republic and New Jedi Order. So Jagged Fell is at 11%, and Jagged, we know who he is. He is, one of the Fowls, of course. His father was very famous for being in Rogue Squadron as well, and then gets kidnapped, and his father did marry Wedge's sister, and so he is Wedge's nephew. And so I put Jagged Fell on there, Cornhorn, and Ineri Forge. So she is from, her sister's from the beginning, the reformed Rogue Squadron, and her sister died, and she remained with Rogue Squadron. Wedge, encouraged to do that. But by the time we get into New Jedi Order, she is a commander, or she's up in our major or something like that. I forgot to write that down. But anyway, so she is a pivotal person in Rogue Squadron and has been in there for a long time. So maybe you guys would have heard of her. At least I think you may have heard of her. Not as very, focused, popular character like Corn and Jaina and Jagged, but I figured her, she would be fun to put in there just to see who knows her and stuff. So, and then of course, Jaina Solo, she is at 70%, Coronet's at 20%, Ineri is at 0%, and Jag is at 9%. So the voting is going up. So Ineri got 9% here. So let's see who's all hopping on here. So share out the stream here and let people know we're live. I do set my Twitter notifications because you can go in there and schedule your tweets. So I do that every night before I go to bed, as I schedule the tweets so that I don't have to worry about that and just prep for you guys this morning. So good morning, you guys. Good morning. I wish I had a Rogue Squadron mug. This is Twin Suns. So I wish I had a Rogue Squadron. Maybe I'll make that happen. Get one done. Jaina goes with a landslide. Yes. I figured she would be there, but she is very phenomenal character. Everybody fell in love with her, and of course her brother Jason and Anakin as well. So, going into that, I was reading someone's tweet to me about her and her brother. I would say brothers, but he's only talking about Jason. And my hair is all whacked today. I'm going to a hair appointment after this, so I can't wait to get my hair redid. But anyways, he was talking about them and how, we watched them being born, we watched them grow up, we seen a lot of their trials and tribulations, especially in New Jedi Order. Well, the Young Jedi Knights too has a lot of that too. And so we've seen a lot of that, and then leading up to Darth Caedus, and Jaina having to be the one that goes after him because Luke Skywalker can't, her uncle can't, because that would cause further problems for him, for the galaxy, because he could turn dark. There's so many scenarios that I really, really like in Legacy of the Force on how much we've seen these characters mature, how much they mature in the Force, and realizing that if they do certain deeds that it can turn them dark, or they know that when they go and do these deeds or become a Sith, that they still think it's for the greater cause of the galaxy, which a lot of bad things are wrapped up in good intentions, right? And that's what Darth Caedus was about. So let's see here. Fracture Filter, good morning. How are you doing? What's in your mug? And Bato, hey guys. And how are you doing? So watching the grandchildren grow up, and even Ben Skywalker in his own self, in his own rights, is a phenomenal character as well. He has got the wit of his mother, and the maturity of his father, I guess you could say, in a sense, or the wisdom of his father. And such a great mixture between Luke and Mara. So I know I didn't put them on the topic, but that was this morning's topic on Twitter a little bit. And I just thought I'd just bring that into this, since we're going to talk about the grandfather. Let's see what you guys are saying. Let's see here. Apart from knowing Jaina, it helps that she is an attractive woman. Yeah, and that's another thing. Her mom, Leia, so her mom, Leia, and Han, her dad, he's not bad looking either. And, Leia, too, as well. And so she's a nice mixture between the two. And, she's small like her mom, but she has the wit of her father, so she has the mechanic skills of her father. She's inherited the piloting, I guess, from both sides, because, let's face it, Jagged Fell is a Corellian. His father is from Corellia, native born Corellian. And, a lot of pilots that come from Corellia are pretty good pilots. And then you have the Skywalker ancestry of being good pilots, but that could also be harbored by the Force. So she has a mixture of that. Let's see here. And I'm doing well. Just got my usual cafe on hand and relaxing. Good. Yeah, with mine, what I've been doing is just brewing my coffee, and then I have some flavors in here. So it's dark chocolate with peppermint, sugar-free. Tastes really good. So I have that going on, because if you guys follow me on Twitter, you know that I am changing how I eat, taking care of my body, working out, making great progress, and I have been feeling really, really great. Had to vote for my boy, Jagged. New favorite character after Jason's turn. Loved his proposal to Jaina. Sit her down to dine and be sure to remove her shoes. Slick move. Right. Yeah. And if you've read through the history, and I almost, so Ineri, so I had a debate with myself. So that's why I put up the poll late last night before I went to bed. Is between it was a debate between Ineri and Zek. So you guys know who Zek is because that's another person that for a little while Jaina had some sort of relationship with. He ended up being way on the friend zone later, and then she was feeling kind of jealous after the fact, but that's another story. And so it was between Ineri and Zek to vote for. So I don't know if I made the right call, but both of them are very interesting characters when it came to Rogue Squadron. However, Ineri has more time and more focus in Rogue than Zek. But well, both of them do. See, that's the thing. That was a conflict. I'm still debating with myself. So hopefully I, you know, did some justice. Let's see here. And Matthew, hello. I wonder who Ben Skywalker's wife was. That's the thing. Who knows? Because honestly, I'm one of them that feels and thinks that Visteri Kai, they never got back together. There was no way because she betrayed him and his family so much towards the end that there's no way of recovering that. There's no way of recovering that whatsoever. She literally put a hit out for his cousin, for Jason's daughter Alana, and she was part of that betraying them. That's a huge betrayal right there. That's yeah. So I don't know, but I'm on that side. I don't think it was her, and I think it's someone else. I really do. It would have been fun to see. It would have been fun to see at least one more encounter between him and Visteri, and if she dies or if she goes on to live, and he lets her go or whatever, or if she even returns whatsoever. There's hints to a lot to come after Crucible, and in Crucible, she was in disguise in that, so or undercover or alias name or whatever. But it's interesting. It would have been interesting to see what would have been with those two, and who would have been his wife, his kid's mama, his baby's mama. Let's see here. And Batsy says, "Good morning, OG in chat." Yes, I already seen that. Let's see here. More coffee. I just like Ineri. I don't know why. Yeah, so that's a thing. And so that was the thing, Zek and Ineri. I didn't know which one to do. So I sat and meditated on it again, meditated on it a little bit, going back and forth with the pros and cons with that. But she was Wedge's wingman for a while too. So he had a lot of confidence in her and stuff. So Zek was just a ordinary force pilot at the time. So I thought, well, maybe. And then 2 girls, 2 boys, make it even, right? Make an even split, or 2 guys, 2 girls. So let's see here. So if you're just tuning in, go vote. This will be up for until 10:05, 10:10, something like that, just after 10, my time. So it's like 9:14 a.m. my time. And I have a lot going on in my head. I need to slow this shit down. Okay. Favorite rogue from New Republic, New Jedi Order era. So I combine those 2. The next one will be Legacy. So that will go further into Legacy. So if you read the comics and Rogue Squadron back in going into Legacy, I will have 4 people from that. Maybe I'll mix up a little bit from Legacy, the early ones from Fate of the Jedi and all that. So we'll see. So, but I will have Legacy era Rogue Squadron. I only can use 4. So Jagged Fell is 27%. Corrin is 13 and is tied with Ineri at 13. And Jaina is at 47%. So she's still taking the lead. Nearly half the votes of everybody who's been voting. I figured she would be a very popular one. Yeah. And I didn't really necessarily put Jason on there. that was another debate of mine, is putting Jason Solo on there. He wasn't necessarily a big focus pilot. I mean, compared to his sister. So I just kind of left him out. He ends up becoming, um, the head of GAG and shared dual state, and holding that seat as well. So I didn't really, put him on there. So let's see here. So Chaos Man says, I wish we would have gotten a conversation between Anakin Solo and his grandfather. Yeah. But we got Jason. Remember when he flowed walk and he went to the temple of the time of the what was it called, Nightfall? Order 66. And so we got him, and he, seen his grandfather and stuff. I mean, they didn't necessarily talk at all, but he's seen his grandfather's true acts of becoming Sith and stuff like that. And he sworn to himself that he wasn't going to be like, his intentions and everything is very separate from Anakin's, his grandfather's. So that was a very interesting one. It's great in the book because there's a little bit more. The scene is more expanded, but if you go and listen to it on Audible, it's amazing too. But reading when the Audibles are abridged, I recommend reading first. Let's see here. Oh, gee, your audio keeps dropping. I turned it down by accident. Sorry about that. I was making sure it was up. And I pressed the wrong button. So that's why I went down. So sorry about that. Let's see here. Chaos Man says, I know Anakin appeared before Jason during the New Jedi Order and told him to stand firm. Was that him? I know that the vision involved, I thought it involved Luke. I have to go back and read that because I always thought it was Luke. So I have to go back and visit that. Okay, now you have me pondering. Okay, so was it Luke, or was it Luke in that? Because I know Luke was kind of involved with a little bit of that. But we shall see. Interesting. So speaking of Anakin Skywalker, and I know if you guys been following me on Twitter, people have been posting again about the prequel trilogy not being the best, like people hating it when it first came out, like it was not well received, blah 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 blah, just going into that narrative and stuff like that. And I know some of you guys responded about how you loved it. You may not have liked some scenes or characters, which is normal. There's scenes and characters in every movie, especially the ones you really really like, that you may not have really cared for, and that's fine. So speaking of Anakin Skywalker, we'll get into him right now, and then we'll get into cringe factor, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Rogue. So let's see here. The Fractured Filter says, yeah, that disappointed me when I listened to the audios, and I could tell stuff was missing. Wish we could get an abridged. It's easier for me to get through. Yeah, so that's the thing. So when it's unabridged, I recommend the audibles. If it's abridged, go read the book. However, read the book all the time, because there might be still a little bit something that was not put in there that maybe catches your eye. I don't know, but it's always good to experience the book first and foremost, and then get into the audible, especially if it's abridged. They're always fun to listen to because you always have the Star Wars soundtrack, all the background sound and the adventure and all the other stuff. The voice, especially like if it's what's his name, Matt. What is one of the key narrators again? Let me see. I'm listening to Heir to the Empire right now, so let me see here. I hate when I forget their names. Mark Thompson. So especially when you have Mark Thompson narrating, he does excellent job with the voices and all of that. So really good. Some of the female voices though not as well, but when a guy does female voices, sometimes it's very difficult. So I understand. Yeah. So with Anakin here, we know that he came into the order at a very young age, and that with him he brought his attachment because he was already raised. He was being raised by his mom. He wasn't taken in an early age to have not developed that attachment, that long-term attachment. 9 years being with your parent and not becoming a Jedi during that time, yeah, you're gonna have those attachments and stuff. And the order, even though they disagreed, and then later on they said, yeah, we'll take him, they knew exactly what they were getting in with, right? Knowing that he has the attachment and the fear and all of that with Anakin at a young age. Hello, Denise. How are you doing? What is in your mug? And go and vote. Excuse me. Go and vote for your favorite rogue from New Republic / New Jedi Order. I only can put 4. So I had to, a lot of them cross over into New Jedi Order. Let's see here. Jagged comes in on the new Jedi Order, though. Corn Horn, Iniri, and Jaina. So still Jaina is leading with 53%. Then we have Jag at 24%. And then Corn and Iniri are both tied at 12%. So I'm glad people are recognizing Iniri. So I'm really glad about that. Let's see here. I always prefer audio dramas because it can be hard to listen to the narrator voicing a person of the opposite gender. It can be very distracting. Well, yeah, I mean, that's why Mark Thompson is one of the favored ones, and he does exceptionally well. So I don't, it doesn't really put me off. So, and then Gordon says the prequel hatred I can deal with, but I won't deal with people who try to say George ruined Star Wars. That's another thing that has been going on as of lately is George ruined Star Wars with the special edition additions. The story wasn't ruined. The plot wasn't destroyed. Just minor scenes to where it doesn't really necessarily change the character. And sometimes you're just like, why did you do this, George? Excuse me. Why did you do this? I mean, there was no point to this, or whatever. Like, who shot first? Everybody will say Han, right? Han shot first. And but those little changes like that really doesn't change the character as a whole. But fans just, I'll go back to attachment. Fans are attached to those little minute scenes that really give us a glimpse at a character, right? And so George did give an explanation about, why he decided to change that scene about who shot first. And whether you agree with it or not, it really doesn't necessarily change the whole arc of Han either. It's just it's not favorable. It's not, but the story's not ruined. Nothing's ruined with it. People will favor it, and I do too. The very first original cut, the original one. A lot of us of older age, my age maybe, I don't know, grew up with those first, right? And then seeing the special editions, I didn't mind. I know exactly what George was getting into when he decided to make enhancements to the OT and change some scenes, or not necessarily change, but add some scenes, or I wouldn't say add either, but maybe change is the better words, I guess you could say, because of technology advancements between the first time, when he was filming and then now, or when he did the special editions. So I get it. It's just, comes down to the fact, what do you favor more? Because not, visuals did change somewhat, but the story never changed. Yeah, the special editions are what introduced me to Star Wars. They are the fulfillment of George's vision, right? He was tying everything in, so you put in some of those ending scenes with, like you see like Naboo and Coruscant and stuff like that to tie everything in, and I get that. I really, really do. He wants to link his movies together, And and that's what the EU did as well, is they made sure that they were in continuity or linking with the movies somehow in some way. And then when George came into the PT and made the PT, he did use a lot of EU stuff for world building as well. And so people who said, oh, well, George really didn't like the EU, well, sad to say to you, bud, but when you watch the PT, that really makes crossovers with the EU, making everything one continuity, because he liked the EU and he used and he linked the EU up with the movies. So like in that period, that time period in the PT, when he was making the movies, novels were being made too to coincide with the lore that was being created. And so there's a lot of synergy that was going on during the time. People do not realize that the company was basically, I would say, in its maybe Renaissance part, because they were working together. The EU, the EU, the writing, the novels, the comics was working together with the film part of the franchise, part of the business, to create a wonderful story, create a story of one continuity that when you read the books, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that comment when they said da 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 in the PT. Wow, this is what really happened. And it's a beautiful thing. And people don't realize that. People don't realize that. And that goes with Anakin Skywalker. So when you get into the novels, like the OT novels are very, very interesting, because you got a lot of information that wasn't used in the movies, but was part of like some part of the script that was taken out, like the script and stuff. Like, and then there was changes too. Like we have Blue Yoda in the novel in Empire Strikes Back, but he is really green. So we have those little things, and we have Obi-Wan saying when Lars is his brother, and that's not the fact. So we have those little hiccups here and there that, doesn't say it in the movies, but it says in the novels. But then when you get to the PT, it's different. So, they change things up with those little tiny, tiny nuances, which doesn't really hurt the story either. It doesn't. One of the things that does put a big question is Padme during the time in the OT when Obi-Wan is talking to Luke or whatever, or when that's being revealed. So that's another one. And maybe we'll have a whole topic on that, discussing the OT novels, because that's a lot to get through right there. Fractured Filter says, one of my favorite, excuse me, narrators is Jonathan Davis. Yeah, he's another good one. Has done great with voicing Obi-Wan and Bane. Yes, I agree. I wasn't too distracted with him voicing female characters. Right. If you have a good voice narrator person who can, mimic different accents, different female voices versus male and stuff, which is very, very vocally talented. I'm only can sing. I grew up singing in choir, all this harmonizing with my family, all of this, but I was never a person who could really do accents and do other voice imitations. A lot of my other family members can, so I envy those who can. Let's see. Alderaan shot first. Ha ha ha, right? And let's see. If you're tuning in, you guys go vote for your favorite rogue there, and I'll check out the stats here pretty soon. Zim says, I like to imagine the Eth Koth would have been a good Jedi to teach Anakin, since Koth was too old when he was taken in as a Jedi. He would have been a sympathetic ear to Anakin. You would think that too, and I didn't really think about the dynamics between that. So good point. Good point. You would think maybe if they paid attention a little bit more, that could have been a little bit of like, maybe he could have confided in him. But then it'll also take away from the nuances between Anakin paying a lot more attention to Palpatine. Palpatine was the distraction. He was the manipulator, right? So we're going back into Anakin's character here. So we know that, of course, him coming in at a very young age, or an older age, than what is normal when they Jedi seek out potential Jedi. And so we got the attachments and stuff, and that's the whole thing about the story of Anakin. It's not about love, but it's about the attachment to the person or an object that cripples you. And I think people forget about that. I think people get too far-fetched, far into like, um, of love is just a soul attachment. There is what you call unconditional love, where you're able, even in grief, you, you are able to let go. And that's what his son Luke taught. Luke hit it on the head when he came in and rebuilt the order when it came to attachment. And that was what made him able to recruit people of all ages, especially a lot of his Jedi, first round of Jedi were adults, young adults to adults. And that's what made him successful, is teaching the dynamics of what can be attachment, what can be conditional love, and how possession of a person, place, or thing can cause problems. And learning to love unconditionally, even in grief, learning to let go. And I think it's a beautiful thing. Let me see what you guys say before I get more into this. You can't respect or repeat the creation from the creator. Whatever George says goes. Let's see here. I'm late. Hello, how are you doing? And a blank face is on the screen. What happened to OG? I don't know why my avatar is not showing up. It's showing up on my end. I haven't got my Ethernet cable connected to my computer just yet. I haven't been able to get out to purchase that and get everything set up. So I apologize. As long as you can hear me, that is fine. So yeah, but I'm here. I am here. And go vote for your favorite Rogue, New Jedi Order, or New Republic, New Jedi Order combined together. I had to narrow it down to 4. So go vote your favorite. And so far, Gaven Darklighter won the first one, and then Wedge Antilles won the second. And it looks like Jaina is leading this one here, which I suspected she would. Honestly, I did. And I was wondering if I should have left her out of this one and put her in the other one, but I don't know. It's hard when you have such a phenomenal character. Like Wedge is very phenomenal, and we got to really know him. He was an intriguing character in the OT, but we really got to know him in the EU, which Stackpole really, really created such a great backstory, or was one of them that created such a good backstory and written his character very well. And Timothy Zahn too in Heir to the Empire really did well with him too. And even in the Hand of Thrawn duology. Let's see here. Jolie Bindu in Couture said it best about love. Love doesn't lead to the dark side. Passion can lead to rage and can be controlled, but love itself will save you, not condemn you. Yeah, and that harkens back to Anakin's redemption, right? Because Anakin was so manipulated by Sidious or Palpatine that, and with his dreams, and we could debate on if these dreams were by the Force that he was getting about Padme's death, or if it was influenced by Palpatine. That's one thing that could be debated, right? But we're not going to get into that debate right now. But Anakin was possessing because he lost his mom. We've seen this little trail of of his story going here. He lost his mom. In fact, he didn't lose her, but he chose to go to the order to become a Jedi, right? So he chose that. Shmi gave him her blessings. But because of the fact that they are so stern with um, not even being really much in contact with your family and stuff. And I would say, in a sense, isolating to train in a way from your family and stuff, so that your sole purpose and focus is becoming a Jedi and stuff like that. That was one of the downfalls of the Jedi, I guess you can say. Because when we get to New Jedi Order, when we get to Luke's faction, Luke's New Order, he didn't separate you from your family, right? He didn't separate you from your family, from your love or whatever. So that was another thing. That was another thing that was wrong with the order, in a sense, that needed to be corrected. It wasn't really corruption. Maybe it got a little bit dogmatic a little bit, but it wasn't corruption. It was just their way of thinking of how one needs to only solely focus on the force and training and stuff, and that if you're involved with your family could lead to the dark side, is a misconception. There you go. So there you go. She's naked. What? Good morning, Greg. And go vote for your favorite rogue person here. Oh my god, I just look over there at the screen there and I'm like, what's going on here? I am not naked. And let's see here. Hi. Okay, sorry to disappoint your little fantasy there. You know, I know it's morning and sometimes, we could, run around. Well, I don't know about guys, maybe. But, one can run around in their underwear or maybe just a t-shirt with nothing on underneath. I don't know. But I'm just saying, but when it comes to might get me with my yoga top and yoga pants on, and that's it. But that's as naked as you'll get. Yeah. So getting back to that. Yeah. So we have, Anakin and, the attachment thing and stuff. And, but then we also have, the manipulation of Palpatine. So what do you guys think about how well Palpatine manipulated? Do you think that George could have done some of the scenes better in it? Or do you think it was good enough from what George shown us in the movies? So let me know in the chat. We'll build on that conversation on the manipulation of Palpatine, or of Anakin Skywalker from Palpatine. Let's see here. Interesting that you mentioned a t-shirt with nothing on under so specifically. Hey, well, sometimes it's just comfort, okay? It's just comfort. Nothing wrong with that. It's just comfort. Let's see here. So, like I said, so what did you think about how well George did the manipulation of Anakin by Palpatine? So share with me in the comments here, and we'll get into that topic before we get into cringe factor here. But as for the polls, while you guys type favorite rogue in those two specific eras, New Republic and New Jedi Order, Jagged is at 25. Corn is at 15. Iniri is at 10, and Jaina is at 50%. So Jaina is leading. So yeah, she is one of the strong female characters, right, that we all know and love. And the granddaughter to Anakin, so she is one of those phenomenal characters to where, people are like, they never had any female, any great female leads, blah blah blah, and I'm like, really? You have not gotten into Star Wars that much. You're showing your true face on your knowledge of Star Wars here. So yeah, she is such a great character. And on top of that, if you want to share any of your favorite scenes on Jaina, feel free to do that. Let's see here. So Gordon says that's something a Tuscan would say, or garble. Garble. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Leave it to Tuscan Bob to come in here like that and say such words, and then I follow through with my bit of words. Oh, oh my goodness. Yeah, so again, I'm gonna get into it. I haven't seen anybody text anything yet, and that's okay. So with the manipulation of Anakin by Palpatine, I wish we could have seen a little bit more conversations between the two. But I understand that working just with three movies, the trilogy and stuff, and time and wanting to tell a story, because I know there's a lot of scenes that were cut, especially from Revenge of the Sith. So let's see here. Well, Lucas himself stated that Palpatine's tale about Plagueis' ability was a lie. Actually, it was not a lie. Like, he was still exploring and stuff. Revan, so I would love to see that interview of that, because it's always good to expand my knowledge, so I'm like not saying something different. But I know from Darth Plagueis novel that that's not necessarily a lie. He was still exploring a way of immortality. Yeah, but manipulating Anakin and stuff like that, and using that story, he was lying to him about him knowing how to, or part of it. So it was partial lie, I guess you can say. um but of course, Sith always exaggerate, always lie, don't fully tell the truth, and when they do, people think it's a lie. So there's that little push and pull with the Sith if you get into the Sith lore and learn more about them. Tuscan Bob says the movies did a sufficient job portraying Anakin's manipulation. He planted the seeds of distrust between him and the Order. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I loved about that as well. Now, you don't have to be a big, huge fan of the PT. I understand. There's a lot of people that say, "Oh, the ones who really, really love the OT hated the PT." I really, really love the OT. I grew up with them. Basically, if you want to put a qualifier there, I don't think that there's a qualifier necessary on when you got started. But when the PT came out, I really enjoyed them. Now, I do have my favorites between the three. Revenge of the Sith is my absolute favorite and my second favorite in the whole six movies. So, yeah. So he did really good job planting the seeds of him and, the Order, and splitting them apart in a sense. Very good manipulator on that part. I think I've talked about that many, many times. And I would love to see additional scenes, a little bit more conversation between the two. Like I said, three movies. There's a lot of a lot of story that George wanted to tell. So there were scenes cut, blah 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 blah. So I get it, but I think it was sufficient enough. Gordon says Jennifer Lawrence wants to play Jaina, but no one has told her yet. Oh my god, that's hilarious. Oh, jeez. We didn't need to see the specific conversations. Well, true. I mean, I that's just me. So maybe reading them would have been better, which you kind of get anyways in the EU, right? So, me, I just like to see like more of the twisting and manipulating of the person. I don't know. It's just I'm fascinated with that, like just those little dynamics, and that this will lead into our conversation about from Disney Star Wars saying that Anakin has dual personalities or multiple personalities or something like that. So, which I think is quite funny. But anyways, George Lucas, and this is from Evan. George Lucas on Anakin's deal with Palpatine. Anakin got sold a bill of goods because he wanted it so bad that he'd believe anything anybody would sell him. I think he's just referring to like wanting to save someone, wanting to save Padme because, of course, he lost his mom to the Tuscans, right? He had those dreams, and he responded to them, and which he wasn't supposed to, of course. And in the end, he couldn't save her. He couldn't bring her back to life. He couldn't save her. So he confided in Palpatine with that, right? And Palpatine used that to manipulate him. So yeah, it wasn't necessarily lies, but it was manipulation in a sense. I wouldn't say lies as in he couldn't help him, because when he was under Plagueis's tutelage, I guess you can say. That sounds so friendly compared to what Sith put their apprentices through. Um, they were exploring immortality, and we know when we get into the lore further that there, some did accomplish that in a sense, but it's very unnatural. And so he was right about that. It's very unnatural, right? Yeah, yeah. Jennifer Lawrence was the first Skywalker ever. Andrew comes straight in with that. The first Skywalker ever. She was the very first. Okay, novel form is better for that. Correct. Kind of telling, because you get the inner monologue. Yeah, yeah, and that's true. Like I like to get into all that and see exactly what's going on, and how he really just pulled those chains, manipulated all of that, just getting into the dynamics of that. And I don't know, I just think it's fascinating in a sense. Holocron, hey, how you doing? Good morning, Laura. Hail the chat. Good morning to you. Go get your vote in. We still got about, maybe, I'd say about 15 more minutes. So you guys coming in, get your vote in for your favorite rogue from New Jedi Order and New Republic and or New Republic era. So I'm combining those two. So this is Rogue Squadron, obviously. Jagged Fell is at 23%. Corn Horn is at 14%. Ineri Forge is at 9%. So if you really got into the X-Wing story, you would know who Ineri, and then also New Jedi Order, you would know who Ineri Forge is. So if you're really into those stories, part of the lore, I think she is one of them that maybe is a little underrated, you know. So, and then of course, Jaina Solo is at 55%. So, she is leading. The daughter of Han Solo is leading over everyone else by a lot. So, but of course, she is, I guess you could say, and I'll just say this and, excuse me, kind of half-hearted. I don't know. I would say half-hearted, but she is the royalty, but there's no such thing as the royalty in Star Wars as, like Disney puts them or whatever. She is the beloved character of her time and earned a lot of praise and stuff from her character arc and her growth. I mean, we like I said, we watched them grow from birth up until most of them death. And so that's an amazing journey to see a character, characters are that intact and that full. Tuscan says part of the manipulation was letting Anakin know that even if the Jedi had the power to save Padme, they would never show him because it was against their dogma. Correct. And then I think in the Revenge of the Sith novel, it also goes into, because, the novel gives more than what the movie can show you, right? It even goes into him really wanting to be master, which he never really got. He's a Jedi Knight on the council. He's not a master on the council, which is still an honor, but he still took offense to it, right? But the reason he wanted to become a master was to get into the archives that were only permitted for the masters. And that also included some Sith stuff, like some Sith history and stuff. And so he wanted to search those archives to find ways to save or help Padme so he wouldn't lose her in childbirth. So all of his intentions may have seemed good in a sense, but also were very, very prideful and selfish. So I highly recommend, like, if you love Revenge of the Sith, read the novel. Novel is phenomenal. One of the best movie novels, maybe in Star Wars. I don't know other franchises because I'm not that experienced in other franchises to say. But in Star Wars, I think it's the best one movie novel. and it is also the one of the best EU because it has both EU and movie content in there. Very, very good. Let's see here. And Solo, I don't see a Soul Assassin here whatsoever. He's usually here modding and stuff, so hopefully he's okay. I know he's been busy over the holidays. Wasn't Palpatine even lying when he ultimately told Anakin, "We can discover immortality together"? I wouldn't know. It just seemed like he used that as a talking point. But like I said, when he was with his master before he killed him and stuff, they were finding together, they were experimenting and finding ways of immortality, which also led to the creation. Now they didn't create Anakin, but the Force did in retaliation. So which led to Anakin being born through the Force. So very, very interesting little turn of events there. So with him, after he got what he wanted, Anakin by his side as Darth Vader, I just think that he focused mostly on controlling the galaxy and just stringing him on. And then after Padme's death, there was no sense of like carrying on that of discovering immortality together. We know that in a sense he did both lore original and Disney, which Disney took it way worse. That he did, do Force as a kind of transfer ish kind of for Dark Empire. And that was like just not even so many years. Like it was still close to the Battle of Endor, like closely at the toward, after the Battle of Endor. And so he did, but he didn't train Anakin or Vader, which is known for, like, in the rule of two, the master doesn't fully give up all the wisdom and training right away, right? So he did that transfer, blah blah blah. Let's see. Palpatine lied about everything. He lied to manipulate in a sense. So he offered a lot of things. He offered a lot of training, a lot more power, which is, power. The dark side is easy and quick power, right? But it's not the balance. That's the difference. He told Anakin that he would watch his career with great interest. Yep, sure did. Let's see here. Hey, Sentinel, how are you doing? And then the whole master achieving immortality violates the principle of the rule of two. Yeah, and I think they all wanted that in a sense. And that just keeps him as power because he stays in power. Now will outlive every single apprentice that he's going to go through and can't be killed. So I get it. Yes, it stops with the rule of two. Then it stops doing the rule of two, where you have a successor, someone who is stronger. Yeah. So, and that's where you have Mara Jade, questioning, was that really Palpatine? When they were talking about, when was it in? Yeah, it was in the Hand of Thrawn duology, where her and Luke are talking about his past and, basically the era of Dark Empire. And she questions, really, like, was that really him? And if you know the history between, Tom and Timothy Zahn, when it came to Dark Empire and the creation of Heir to the Empire, the Thrawn trilogy, that there's this push and pull on which way they wanted to go. And Zahn really didn't care for Dark Empire, from what I've was seen and heard and read. So then you have, kind of that feelings going into Mara Jade when she's talking to Luke Skywalker about that. I really don't think that it was him. And so we have this vagueness about, was it really him force transferring himself, transferring his essence into clone? Is that really him? Are clones really, really true versions of the person they're cloned from? Do we start separating and start, getting further away from the true person and stuff like that. So that's something further to, debate and discuss. Maybe we could do that on Twitter or whatever, but it's very interesting about that. So we're coming up on the hour here pretty soon. So I'm going to pull up Cringe Factor, which will still talk about Anakin in general. So, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about what Disney is doing, and maybe do you agree with them? Do you agree with them even in the original lore on if it's two personalities or multi-personality disorder for Anakin? So we'll see here. But first of all, let's go ahead and check out the stats here. So we'll have about another over 5, maybe about 10 minutes to keep it up here. That didn't sound right, but still keep the poll up. So favorite rogue from New Republic, New Jedi Order eras. Jagged Fell is at 23%. Cornhorn is at 14%. Iniri Forge is at 9%. And Jaina Sola is at 55%. So there we go. So you got about near 10 minutes to get your vote, and if you haven't had a chance to vote, so get that in. The Sith have no honor. No honor whatsoever. None whatsoever. So let's see here. So get your vote in here and let me know which one is your favorite Rogue Squadron member of New Republic and New Jedi Order era. Like I said, I used some more commonly known this time. Iniri Forge, I think she is underrated. Like I said, I had Zek planned for that as well as Iniri, and I had to choose between the two. Orange Hat says, I sadly have to depart. Got major errands to run. Gonna be gone for the rest of the day. Take care, OG. May the force be with you, and to the chat as well. Well, you have a great day. Be safe out there traveling on your errands and stuff. And thank you for joining in. Hopefully you got your vote in as well to contribute. And then next Thursday will be Legacy Era, Rogue Squadron. So we'll vote on that. And then as we go into January, we'll take the top 4 of those polls and see who wins out. So this should be a good one. This should be a good one. And let's see here. The Sentinel. Every single relationship the Sith have with each other is toxic one. It's built on the mistrust and manipulation. Yeah, even when you get into the Lost Tribe of the Sith, that too. Like when, Vistara Kai's father was saying, use Ben to get to the family, to get to the Skywalkers in any means. That's manipulation, right? So he's like, there's very suggestive things like get close to him, make a relationship, have sex with him. Basically, it's very suggestive in that sense. So let's see here. So let's go ahead and pull this article up. So again, this is Cringe Factor portion of the of my calf chat. I'm trying to get used to saying calf over coffee now. This is a long time coming. Like even from the beginning when I created coffee chat, I still debated I should have just named it calf chat. First of all, let's go ahead and check out a little past commercial from Lucasfilm Star Wars.
I had fought the worst of all wars and witnessed the redemption of evil. I have seen balance restored to the Force. But order can turn to chaos, as it did when I was born. Now, with my loved ones and my loyal allies, I face a new challenge unlike any before. And I'm not sure at this time we can win.
Star Wars Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore, the first novel of the New Jedi Order.
Now, speaking of, since we're doing Rogue Squadron also in the New Jedi Order, Aaron thought I would play that. So we'll pull this up here. Hello. Let me see what you guys have to say here. Jim says, with Anakin have multi-personalities disorder, to me is just another entry on the list of how Hollywood portrays mental illness poorly. It can lead to some rather bad consequences. Yeah, and we'll get into that. My question here, and something to ponder. And thank you for, between Andrew, our caffeinated wolf, and Soul Assassin, I do get a lot of subjects for Cringe Factor from them because they're always sending me stuff. I'm like, holy shit, are you serious? Yeah. And even with the that one show, Skeleton Crew, I was going to talk about that here for Cringe Factor. Decided not to, but I guess part of the walk-offs are related to the Dathomirian witches, the Dathomir witches or whatever. Something is being changed, or one of the people didn't agree with the direction that they're taking that lore. And so some of them were very upset about that. And I kind of giggled and said, well, if it's Filoni, I'm glad, because, Karma's a bitch. He's the one that changed the history of Dathomir, right? So if they're changing up his story and he's pissed off about that, good. Karma's a bitch. I'm glad. Suck it, bitch. There you go. But anyways, I'm done. Let's see here. And so that's my rant on that. That's my little report on that. I can care less, but if it's Filoni throwing a fit because they're changing what he changed from the original lore, good for it. Good. Suck it, bitch. All right. So the Sentinel said CBR is just parodying what I've heard before, and that's a count has some kind of split personality disorder, and I can get where that's coming from, but Anakin chose to be Darth Vader. Yeah, so he chose to change name. There's no split personalities there. And I just read this one here. And then I'll read this interesting. I haven't seen that kind of article in a while. Yeah. And let's see here. And Darth Vader. I'm pretty sure that was misspelled there. Darth Vader. Darth Vader isn't some personality that he has. It's something that he's chosen over Anakin because he felt Anakin was too weak to do what was necessary. Yeah, so we'll get into that right now. So let me go ahead and just put this fully on the screen, or take my window out. So I'm going to read this here and come back and forth to you guys here. But it says Darth Vader's, and this is by David Miller. It was published 2 days ago. But I wanted to get into this and have a topic of Anakin Skywalker and compare and contrast between George's vision of Anakin coming in as Vader versus what Disney is doing now. And this also says per comic, and these are the Darth Vader comics that have been coming out, how it's changing the direction or how people are going to view Empire Strikes Back, which myself and a few of us are, even on the spacing, we have been noting that they don't have to reboot. All they have to do is remake. And what we mean by this is that using their stories, remaking the EU, right? And using those stories to have their fans view George's stories in a different light changes the whole context of what the original Star Wars is supposed to be about. So just by remaking the EU changes the point, how people view the OT and the PT, right? And this is proof in itself. Now, yeah, these are shit, pop culture websites, quote unquote journal websites, but there is some truth to it. And you got to check out the truth. Darth. Yeah, I got it. And it's not a split personality. It's just Anakin's alter ego. Some people, same people, same mind, same soul, just different name. Correct. No, it's not even an alter ego, because it's like Batman and Bruce Wayne. Anakin goes to Vader and stays as Vader. Let's see here. So we'll get into that. The seemingly split personality of Darth Vader is especially prominent in Disney Star Wars. So especially prominent. So keywords. Here we go. I'm going to read it again. The seemingly split personality of Darth Vader is especially prominent in Disney Star Wars, affecting the Sith Lord's most famous quote. And I revealed where that quote is from. So you'll find out what exactly the quote is in Empire Strikes Back. And I think there might be another one too here, but we will get into that. Disney's recent Star Wars content has renewed focus on Darth Vader's two identities. Darth Vader has two identities? What? Recontextualizing his most famous quote. While once a good man as a Jedi Knight, Anakin Skywalker tragically falls to the dark side and adopts the Sith Lord identity of Darth Vader. So he goes dark. He casts everything he was before, all the good in him, and takes on the name Darth Vader. Okay? While Anakin and Vader are one and the same in a literal sense, Star Wars media in both canon and legends will sometimes treat the two as separate entities, leading to fascinating connotations in iconic moments. Okay, so we have two different eras. Of course, once we get into the OT, we know him as Vader. He is steepled into the dark side. He is taken on that persona, that role, that new part of himself. We're always changing as humans, right? We're always changing as people. However, not as drastically as these Star Wars characters do, especially when they fall to the dark side. They are still the same person. They just take on new names, and their intentions are completely the opposite of what they would originally do. That's the difference. So by the time we get into the OT, of course, we're not going to really get Anakin until the redemption starts, right? We're not going to really get into that persona. But when we are in the PT, of course, we got to see the fall of Anakin, the rise of Darth Vader, right? So we're going to get Anakin, and we're going to get the reasons why he decided to take on the dark side. So of course, we do get different iconic moments because we have to focus on those two, at their peak, I guess you could say. Darth Vader and Anakin Skywalker being separate people is an idea present in the original Star Wars trilogy, with Obi-Wan Kenobi using this perspective to hide the truth from Luke Skywalker in A New Hope before justifying his words as a certain point of view in Return of the Jedi. Recent Star Wars Disney lore material, particularly the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, centers the idea of the two being separate even further, which has a strong effect on Darth Vader's famous "I am your father." So there you go. That's the quote right there. That's the quote line in Empire Strikes Back. This is notable because Darth Vader himself believes he is separate to his former self, claiming that he killed Anakin Skywalker. So let's see what you guys have to say here. Okay, Darth Vader didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. That's something Obi-Wan Kenobi chose to believe, even though before that stupid Kenobi show, that was never the case. Right. It was always a belief of, and like half truth, I guess you could say, that Obi-Wan told Luke. And, I've debated and had many conversations about, Obi-Wan and his being truthful to his, being, honest with Luke, and knowing the story between him and Luke. He wasn't strong, and Luke at the time wasn't mentally strong and prepared to take on the full truth of who Vader really is to him, right? Was it did Obi-Wan need to go down that, or should he have told him the truth in the beginning? We'll never know, but it led to a great storyline between the two, and the discovery and the surprise "I am your father," bit, subverting our expectations, right? That's the best example of subverting expectations, right? Is him revealing who he is to Luke. But Obi-Wan, did stretch the truth here a little, did, kind of protect him in a sense, because him feeling that Luke wasn't really prepared to hear the full story until after his training, right? So we could debate about that too, and that could be a great topic in itself. But when we get into Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader, Vader, because this is like after Revenge of the Sith. He's seen himself before he took on the Sith mantle as Darth Vader. He's seen himself more weak when he still was Anakin before he became a Sith, right? And so he's seen himself weak because he couldn't save Padme. He couldn't, he didn't have the powers as he has now. He wasn't as free as this is kind of sad because, Anakin was a slave when he was younger, right? And now he sees himself, even though he is now a slave basically to the dark side, an apprentice to a master that is more controlling than ever, he still sees himself free because of the power that he was promised and that he has gained and all this. But then he's also a slave to his suit. So it's a tragic story, right? It's very tragic. So I'm not trying to go off on a tangent here or going off in a different whole direction from this article, but you see that his personality is still the same. He's still the one and the same. He's just taken on the Sith mantle. And let's go on here. I'm gonna read your comments before I scroll down further. Attributing mental illness to Anakin is just a play to discount evil done by a person making choices. Yeah, his choice to do evil deeds and stuff. Now once I'm done or mostly through this article, because I don't plan on reading it all. If I do, I do. But I'm going to get into what this mental disorder really is and how it doesn't really necessarily pertain to Anakin as Vader. Let me take a sip here. Excuse me. Anakin is under a lot of mental distress during the events of Revenge of the Sith, and under that stress and mental duress that he's under, he has chosen the easy way out. He's chosen Vader. He was never Vader. He didn't want to. He was so prideful and selfish at the time. And that, in a sense, you could say he felt hopeless because he felt that it was out of his control, that he chose that path. Jackson says, Vader was Anakin without joy or empathy. There are thereby without pain or guilt, just anger and the next mission. Why he still sought the Jedi even after Palpatine told him it wasn't his job anymore. And we'll get into that once I get into a little bit more about this disorder and stuff and how it doesn't really pertain to Anakin / Vader. Well, then we'll get more into those points. Strap on spelled backwards is no parts. Hello to you. And you know what? Let me go ahead and close out the poll here. So if you're just coming in, get your vote in. I'm going to read this so you have time. So a minute or so while I read the stats to you. And it's to give you time to vote. Favorite rogue from New Republic, New Jedi eras. Jagged Fell is at 22 so far. Cornhorn is at 13. Inari Forge is at 9. And Jaina Sola is at 57%. And the poll is closing now. There you go. So Jaina makes it in to the top 4. So we have Gaven, Darklighter, Wedge, Antilles, and Jaina Solo. So, and this is out of 23 votes. So thank you guys for voting. Again, Jaina then went up to 56, Jagged 21, Corn at 13, and Inari Forge is at 8%. So thank you guys for voting in on that. Jaina makes it in. Congratulations to her. All right. I killed Anakin Skywalker. Words, just words. He knows, and we all know Anakin is still in there somewhere. Now, like a multiple person or a split personality, basically, both of them are separate from each other. You do lose memory from the past, from the original, your original self and stuff like that. So, and he never does. Even as a Vader, he still loves and longs for Padme. If it was a separate personality, he would care less. That's another difference in that. So then we'll go ahead and read a couple more, and then move on. Read the rest of the article. The core of Anakin that lies within Vader is still trapped by the dark side. Correct. Voice of Qui-Gon Jinn in Dark Lord: Rise of Darth Vader. Correct. He's still there. He's still one and the same. He just chose to go dark. His intentions are dark. He can care less. It's like, and all that. So very, so Star Wars lore and, going dark, going Sith, or whatever you want to call it, is not the same as a split personality. And Tommy, how are you doing? From a certain point of view, correct. There we go. And a big old cheesy smile. How you doing? Tuscan Bob says, passing Vader off as a second personality robs the character of the suffering he endured. Correct. His choices in Revenge of the Sith trapped him. There was no going back. Correct. So let's go ahead and get on with this. So it does. They're saying that it's going to change this forever. So we'll get into that. And it says the line in Empire Strikes Back. This is notable because Darth Vader himself believes he is separate from his former self. Shozi claiming that he's killed Anakin. So yeah, I already read that one, but I just wanted to recap on that. In the time between the prequel and the original Star Wars trilogies, Anakin Skywalker resigns himself to his newfound Sith lordship, having lost everything he cared about, by making him Faustian bargain with Palpatine and falling to the dark side. What changes this resignation is the discovery of his son, Luke. So we already know this. We already know that, he knows he's still Anakin. He just sees that as a weak part of himself. And then his son Luke, who he believed to have died with Padme years ago, by telling Luke, I am your father, instead of simply revealing that his father became Darth Vader. So this is something I talked about earlier with someone right here. So by telling Luke, I am your father, instead of simply revealing that his father became Darth Vader, he is revealing that the part of him that still identifies as Anakin Skywalker is coming back to the surface. All right, so if he was a split personality, he wouldn't say, I am your father. He would reveal that his father became Darth Vader, or that his father's Anakin and I have taken over, or something like that. I'm just being, a little bit hyperbolic here. But because he knows he is one and the same Anakin, but he sees Anakin as weak. Saying, I am your father also admits that he is Anakin. Plain and simple. There's no split personality there whatsoever. Now the heart of Anakin starts coming forward, like the good of this being that's Anakin / Darth Vader is coming up. Because the only reason he decided to take on this dark side persona was to find the power to help save Padme, not realizing that him choosing to become dark is what really kills her. Because if you look back at his visions of her, his dreams that he has, his first visions, she's in labor. And it shows that it shows the scenes of her when she's in labor with the twins and, dies. So it's his choices of going to the dark side, becoming Sith. That's what's really kills her, really. It's his own choices. If he would have stayed light, and this is just like getting into that, getting behind the psychology of this, I guess you could say. If he chose to stay light, would she have really died? When you look at his visions, She's in that moment where she is on Polis Massa, giving birth, and then dies. So there's something to think about, right? So he chose this destiny. He chose this for himself. Any altered wording of the I am your, or let me see. Okay, I read it right. Any altered wording of the I am your father dialogue simply lacks the same impact, both Luke Skywalker and for the viewers as well. Different phrasing would result in the Sith Lord Darth Vader omitting responsibility for Luke in some form or another. See, that's the thing. George intended Vader and Anakin to be one and the same. There was no split personality. So now they got to do like this little word thingy, and to explain away their theory, I guess you could say. Make it make sense. It's clearly in George's intentions, I am your father, that we know Darth Vader and Anakin are one and the same. There's no split personalities whatsoever. And like I said earlier, this reveals it. Now, if Darth Vader was very separate from Anakin, he wouldn't say that whatsoever. So there we go. So he had no choice but to accept that he and Anakin are one and the same. He knew there was a choice. He knew already. He already knew that they are one and the same. He just despised himself, who he considered weak as Anakin before he became a Sith Lord, right? Anakin as a Jedi was weaker because pride and power and all of that are what Sith are, right? They are more powerful. They see Jedi as insufficient, inferior. Yeah. Let's see here. By doing so, Darth Vader also became a far more complex character, especially within the context of the original Star Wars trilogy. For all of A New Hope and most of Empire Strikes Back, Darth Vader is a menacing antagonist, correct? But it is only after he reveals his secret that the original trilogy films treat him as a complex and tragic figure that he is famous for being. Darth Vader's discovery of Luke Skywalker gives his Sith persona reasons to plot against Palpatine, blah, blah, blah. He's always been plotting against Palpatine. So there you go. And with that, let me see what you guys have to say, and then we'll get more into that. Well, what's going on there? We'll leave it here. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here. Hey, everyone. Hey, how are you doing? Tuscan says, after that, robbed Star Wars of one of the critical moral lessons. Correct. It's a good versus bad. It's about, if you go from good to bad and that redemption and the morals and the consequences from it, right? Facts. And then Matthew Stover wrote it perfectly at the end of the novel. This is how it feels to be Anakin Skywalker forever. Correct. And that also gives more light into it when you get into Dark Lord Rise of Darth Vader. So very, very good. Yeah. I mean, like I said before, Revenge of the Sith novelization, you guys read it. I think it's unabridged for Audible, so check it out. If anything, Anakin gets a new identity and sticks to the tenets of the new identity. He has absolutely nothing to go back to his old life. He is now fully present and future Darth Vader. Let's see here. And then Batu says, I often dream of Jagged meeting Wedge and Wedge offering him command of Rogue Squadron for some big final battle. He gets an X-Wing and R2 and he and Wedge salute each other. He does come in, like I said, New Jedi Order, he comes in, the Chiss send him, or the Hand of Thrawn send him in to help out. They dismantle from Neuron after Luke and Mara leaves the planet after they discover the Hand of Thrawn, but they send him in, and he helps, and then he becomes a part of the Rogue Squadron. So it's very interesting. He already knows who Wedge is, though, because when he meets Wedge and stuff, he finds out his mom and Wedge are brother and sister. So very interesting storyline there. Very interesting. One of two, the way I see it, the title becomes the persona, much like someone who hides their actions behind the office or title they hold, absolves themselves of accountability. That moment, I am your father, is Anakin saying, yeah, I done screwed up. And then Miss Martin muses, hello, you little hand wave and Rose. Thank you for tuning in and coming in. Batsy says, I honestly thought Darth Vader was a separate personality. Guess I fell for Filoni Disney propaganda. Let's see here. He literally asked Luke to join him to overthrow the Emperor and rule the galaxy side by side. Right. And he does have ambitions, because when you get into the original lore, he has secret apprentice already. And with the Rule of Two, sometimes the apprentice who wants to take up the mantle of destroying their master so they can take the mantle of master in the Rule of Two, will have an apprentice in line already. So that's how the Rule of Two is. At times, the apprentice is getting ready to destroy their master so they can take the mantle, and they already have apprentice with them. So we already seen that, but Star Killer, basically Galen gets killed, long before we see Luke and stuff. So, and then of course we have the clone, but that story never concluded because of the buyout of Star Wars. So let's see here. And then, and then Tommy says, people have personality shifts under duress. This is no different, especially if they can't deal with something tragic they have done. So I was going to get further into that, which I find very interesting. So basically, it's called a dissociative identity disorder, or a multiple personality disorder, a mental health condition. People with dissociative identity disorder, or DID, have two or more separate personality, quote, separate. There's no separate personality between Anakin and Vader. Vader still acknowledges Anakin as himself, even though he sees it weaker and he doesn't want to live that way anymore. He still knows who he is. He still remembers who he is. He still remembers the past. He says that the name no longer, what is that quote again in Return of the Jedi? His name no longer serves him. I'm paraphrasing. Sorry. I am paraphrasing. So he talks about the name. He doesn't talk about a separate personality, really. So it says, DID can cause gaps in memory and other problems. Various types of psychotherapy can help people manage the symptoms of DID. So are we saying that with Disney Star Wars, that when Luke Skywalker redeems his father, he gives him therapy? Because if they go down this path, and this, like Tuscan and a lot of you guys say in the chat, this takes away this redemption arc, this meaningful arc, this tragic arc of Anakin / Darth Vader, right? So Luke Skywalker is now a psychotherapist who has helped him manage to come back to former Anakin in a sense of separate personalities. This takes away, like Disney surely, and people who see it in this way, takes away the ending of Anakin's / Darth Vader's life, and also the prophecy of Anakin destroying the Sith. He destroys himself, basically. He decides that keeping the mantle of Darth Vader and the Sith ways no longer serves him. So that's how he destroys the Sith within him, right? And I'm not talking about separate personality. I'm just saying his choices and him taking the mantle and him being a Sith. And now bringing that light back up of Anakin. And then, he already destroyed the Emperor. So he destroyed the Sith. He decided how he was acting as Darth Vader no longer serves him. And then he also decided, of killing the Emperor, because that caused a lot of hardship. And I'm saying that that's just a loose word, hardship, for the galaxy and for himself. Again, going back to the prophecy of that. Let me see here. Choosing to save Luke is an Anakin choice. And as soon as he makes the choice to save Luke, he's no longer Darth Vader. Does any of this split multiple personality stuff affect the message of the story? It does. It sure does. And let's see here. So, of course, like I said, they have 2 or more separate personalities. These personalities control their behavior at different times. Each identity has its own personal history. Traits, like and dislikes, can lead to gap in memory and hallucinations, believing something is real when it isn't. So Anakin, or Vader, is not hallucinating. He is not believing something is real when it isn't. Everything that's happening is real. This is all choices. When you these are not choices you make. You have these different personalities that make these choices for you. You're not in control. Anakin as Vader is in control of everything he did. This is not a did personality. This is not a did disorder. Let's see here. Choosing to save. Okay, I read that. I just don't believe that any social media persona or person saying this has good intentions. And this is what leads into Disney Star Wars, because this comes in from some of the comics that they're producing of Darth Vader, the Darth Vader comics. Tuscan says the lesson is that Anakin was always suffering as Vader. Trapped and tortured by his actions, Luke showed Vader that there was still a choice, freeing him of that trap. Correct. And let me go into some of this here. So other common signs and symptoms basically are anxiety, delusions, depression, disorientation, drug and alcohol abuse. And this is just real life. But since they're going this way of multiple personalities, I just wanted to, pull up on this and let you guys know what these other symptoms are. Memory loss, which we know he has no memory loss whatsoever, and suicidal thoughts are self-harm, which is not the case. If you know the story of Darth Vader, he goes into his meditation healing chambers, his little pod that you see him in Empire Strikes Back. He's meditating. He's trying to find ways to heal himself. That doesn't coincide with this disorder that they're saying he has. There's no disorientation. There's no disillusions. He doesn't suffer from anxiety or depression. Well, maybe I would say just a little bit of depression, a sense of anger and stuff like that, but that's a Sith thing. But depression, he's not depressed. He's not hiding off like, poor me kind of depression. And there's no memory loss. He remembers everything, all that had happened. And because he remembers, he doesn't return, well, in original lore, he doesn't return to Tatooine or even back to Naboo or anything that can spark those memories and feelings of losing Padme and suffering like he is. Like even going to the Jedi Temple at one point in Dark Lord Rise of Darth Vader, that really does a doozy for him because it brings back a lot of memories. So there's no clear symptoms that he's going through to have this disorder, to have any of this disorder. He chose to be Darth Vader. He chose this type of life. He chose all the all that comes with being a Sith. And to the Sith, the Jedi are enemies, right? So when he took on the name that was granted to him when he pledged his allegiance to Palpatine or Sidious, when he took on that name, he's seen all he's done in the past as evil because now he's a Sith. So anything the Jedi did was evil, bad, corrupt, whatever. And so now he's feeling that he's doing the right thing in a sense. But that's not a multiple or separate personality. It's a choice. It's a choice. And like Tuscan and some of you guys said, and like I've said in the past, with those choices, there comes, repercussions, and there's moral lessons in it when it comes to stories like this, good versus bad. Just like George said, he wanted to give Star Wars as a story that, like he said, and I'm quoting from the Star Wars archives, a story that the kids can cheer on with a happy ending in a sense, right? And so there's morals in there that kids can learn from. Yeah. So let's see here. And hold on. Vader is self-preserving because he has galactic important stuff to do. Let's see here. Sorry, folks, my power went out this morning. Oh, okay. I knew something was happening. I'm glad you are here, and I hope you are fine. No excuses, Soul Assassin. Boom! Tuscan's like, bam, here we go. And then Jackson says, any thoughts on Vader Immortals? I like it because I can use some basic forms of great effects, but lore-wise, what are the implications of him trying to revive Padme? Oh, is that the Vader Immortals? I would say, in a sense, and this is just coming from me, it's what if stories. Let's see here. But I think you're talking about the Disney stuff. Let's see here. Certainly not. One has to pass in order to be a Force ghost, right? Let's see here. Yes. Thank you so much. She's like, I'm going to catch up with all this here. It's okay. You're cool. But anyway, so I thought I'd cover this and talk about this some more, so this does lessen the impact and the morality of the storytelling behind Anakin falling into Vader and being redeemed. When you go down a path of putting real life disorders into a character of fiction that has this type of like mystical life force powers, the Force, and the good versus the bad, light versus the dark kind of morality there that George set. Because then now, and I'm going back to the original question before I started reading the article, does this mean all Sith are now, do they all have separate personalities? Especially the ones that go from Jedi to Sith, or even dark light or Jedi going into dark Jedi. Because not everybody turns Sith, right? Especially, because of the rule of two and stuff. So if a Jedi goes dark, they're just a dark Jedi. So they don't really take on a persona name, or maybe they change the name. But going dark, does that mean that now you're having a split personality? Is this what Disney's heading towards when it comes to the lore? I don't know. I find it sad that through comics and through the novels and through the shows and what have you, because Disney or Star Wars in general is a multimedia franchise. And what that means is that everything's in continuity with each other unless specified, right? Like we have infinities or in canon with the original lore. Can't talk much about Disney lore other than that they said that everything was going to be in one continuity and equal to the movies. So there's no hierarchy of canon from what they said. So if that's the case, they have done screwed up their lore so many times. What do you believe if you're a Disney fan? Or do you just say, oh, it's just, it's like, it's a multiverse now, which anything can go, which lessens the impact of what Star Wars was really originally created as, right? So we have that. And, and so seeing this, I wouldn't even say evolution of Disney's Star Wars, but this regression of Disney Star Wars with the direction they're taking it. No wonder they are starting to lose so many original fans, because we all came in not only with the movies, but exploring the lore with the other multimedia, the other media within the lore, whether you came in for games, whether you came in for the novels or comics or what have you. That broadened your perspective on what George was creating and what his company set forth to do with the lore, and create it with 25,000 plus years of history. It goes further than that, but the stories, there's not that much stories other than alluding to, like the ricotta and the 3,000 years of history, or 300,000, sorry, and so on and so forth, and the celestials and all that. But when you start seeing the new owners deconstruct it and are very loose and take away the heart, and the heart's not there, and the heart was George in a sense, and what his team had to offer, and they all embedded that heart, with maybe the exception of a few, and I won't get into it, but maybe the few who they are. You start seeing these characters, these legacy characters like Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, being changed into something completely different. The morality of the story being changed into something completely different. It becomes meaningless. It ceases to be timeless. And that's the tragedy of Disney owning Star Wars now. That's the tragedy. So let me see what you guys have to say. The Sentinel says, I don't think Disney fans really think this far ahead, to be honest. And that's the difference between a lot of original fans versus Disney fans. Not all, because we still have people coming in that are now coming into the original lore, the EU and stuff, realizing that there's better, deeper, meaningful stories that keeps in continuity fairly well. There are hiccups in the EU. We know that, and I've never admitted it differently. So I'm not saying, but my point is, the newer fans, or the fans that are now coming into the EU, are far less now than the ones that are feeding into this and thinking this is a good Star Wars. And it's tragic. It's sad. And this is who they're catering to. They're catering to the people who want to associate with mental disorders and stuff like that. This is what we're leading to. Split personality? What kind of nonsense is this? You missed it, Soul. You're going to have to catch the replay. When becoming a Sith, you get to choose a new identity, or you're granted it, like you're renamed by your Sith master. You're still the same person, just a dick now. Correct. Correct. Let's see here. And did I miss anybody's here? Let's see here. It means that Anakin beheaded a person with a mental disorder in Revenge of the Sith. Poor Dooku. Yep. So now all Siths from this point on seem to be like, have separate personalities, and they have the did disorder. And that's your new Star Wars. Well, that's their new Star Wars. But when you get into Anakin Vader's story, what makes it tragic is that they're one and the same. That's what makes it tragic, that he loses himself to love, like the possession of love, but then love, pure unconditional love, is what redeems him. It's a simple story, but still deep in a sense. And in between, you see the suffering, you see the angst of him no longer, like, mourning the loss of a family, not gaining control, but wanting control. It's all his choice, though. It's all his choice. And he makes that choice when he decides to off Mace Windu, basically. Once he, helps off Mace Windu, that is when he makes that choice. And that's what Palpatine wanted. And it's also the manipulation too. It takes away from the manipulation of, the manipulation that Palpatine did towards Anakin. It takes away the very evil mind, masterful mind of Palpatine. By now, it's just a disorder. How in the hell does someone get a disorder like that? When deciding to become a Sith, is there some kind of like when you have cell division, is there some kind of division of like the mind, the personality, where it just like splits apart? Is that what they're saying? I don't know. It's just so stupid. It's just so idiotically stupid. Excuse me. Teskin says someone should tell Gay Windu that he can't bash Trump anymore. Trump was a registered Democrat, and Mega is just a split personality, and it's against Twitter's deals to attack someone for a disability. Good one. It really is sad. They've cultivated and harvested people who like Star Wars, and on the most superficial, shallow level possible. Let's see here. Having just Anakin choose his destiny, in a sense, as that what they call, it's your destiny, right? Is more simple than saying he, by the minute that Sidious coined him Darth Vader, he developed a split personality. I don't know. Let's see. You can't say, is anything else. I don't know. It's just weird. It's weird. OG, what's your favorite Clone Wars comic and favorite Clone Wars book? Oh, that one's a difficult one. I think my favorite Clone Wars comics is the one of the Battle of Jabim. And a Clone Wars book, I will have to get back to you on that one. I don't know. I never thought about the book. I've always thought about the comics on the favorite direction, like the favorite ones. Like the Battle of Jabim is so tragic, and they suffer a lot of defeat and losses. But when you get to the Clone Wars, was it Obi-Wan says it, how can we seem like we're winning when we lose, or something like that? It was such a stupid phrase. Let's see here. Let's see here. Siths don't do nothing. Very well said. Hello, Abunas. How are you doing? Thank you for joining in. You missed it. You're going to have to catch the replay. But basically, according to Disney Star Wars, Anakin has a split personality when he becomes Vader. So let's see here. Yoda, sort of try to tell you I did. I love that. The Sentinel. Yeah, again, I read this type of article back in 2005. They were already trying to get people to think of Anakin as a split personality disorder. I've heard it on occasion, but that's not the direction. And I think people are just like, blah. That's why they refer to like legends, basically. They said quote unquote legends in there, both in Disney and Legends, which basically Disney and original lore. It was hinted on. but that was never the focus of Anakin and Vader whatsoever. It was just a choice, and we've seen that choice. But now it's more, more apparent in the Disney lore. That's what they seem like they're aiming towards now, so that people with disorders can identify with Anakin, I guess. Now, I don't know if you want to identify with Anakin turning as Vader and Vader as a character for your disorders. I don't think that's the right way to go about it, but hey, that's third thing. The Sentinel says a similar type character to Anakin is, I'd say, would be be Al Simons. Both sell their souls to the devil and become a new identity. Anakin becomes Vader. Now this is where they can kind of say that identify as. Now, if you're going to go that way, you could, like how I identify as a horse, or I identify as this, then maybe you can say that this can lend to that when Anakin chooses the path of a Sith and takes on the persona or the name Darth Vader. I won't say persona because he didn't just jump into a persona. That's just who he is as an evil bastard, basically. That's just who he is as an evil bastard. There's really no change. We have good and bad sides of ourselves. We can be bitches and assholes all the fucking time. We can be mean and heartless and stuff. Well, this is who he chose. This is Anakin, who he is as an evil bastard. That's all. That's it. Let's see here, and let me see what you guys have to say. Soul says, I remember there was a comic story where a Jedi had a split personality with the other being Sith who he is looking for. I don't remember. I didn't get through all the comics just yet. So if you find out which comic that is, please share it with me in our DMs. Not that split personality would excuse what he did. Let me see. I've been here listening for the past 20 minutes, honey. Having lunch now, about to get back to work. Thoroughly enjoyed the show. Thank you so much for continuing to support, even though you're at work. I greatly appreciate it. So if you have ADHD, I have to identify as Jar Jar. Wow, we come to that. Now, we're coming to that. Let's see here. I'm not an a-hole, just misunderstand or misunderstood. It's all very modern. Every antagonist has to have some sort of trauma that made them that way. To pretend that evil is not a choice is to deny evil exists, right? And that's the thing. People, we choose to be assholes at times. We choose to be, you could say, cunts as well. I'm laying out all these words here. We choose to say shitty things. It just doesn't happen sporadically. It just doesn't happen. Even in a split personality, you might have a personality that's good and one that's bad, like I wouldn't say alter ego, but whatever. And they choose to be bad. So it's a choice. It's just it is. So I don't know more than just that. I mean, we choose to be good. We choose to be bad. We choose to say funny shit. We choose to say bad shit. We have choices we make in life, and this is what Anakin chose. He chose to become Darth Vader. He chose it so that he can get unlimited power, as what Palpatine, offered him, and then yelled out as a final stamp of of manipulation towards and having him cross over, unlimited power kind of deal, right? And so he sealed it in the deal when Anakin chose to help off Mace to make that final decision, to cross that final line, kneeling down, pledging to be his apprentice. That is no sign of split personality whatsoever. It's a choice. It is a choice. And now he forever sees the Jedi as evil. He sees him once as Anakin making those bad choices, those evil choices. And now in his mind, he's doing the right thing to try to save his wife and what have you. So that's just some of the context within that. See, people with autism wouldn't say autism as an illness. Although that's a big assumption on my part. Yeah. Anakin was seduced by the dark side, not raped, not by it, or aped by it, not aped by it, right? Unlimited power, let's go. Yes, exactly. So we're coming up on the hour now, so thank you guys for chatting with me about Anakin Skywalker and this Cringe Factor article, a little bit about Rogue Squadron and some of the history, especially Jaina Solo and the Solo kids, and all of that. That was fun. So the next week's poll, next Thursday, we'll go into Legacy era. So that will go into the Legacy comics, which is 120 some odd years after A New Hope or Yavin. So hopefully you guys know your rogues of that time. And I may add a couple from Legacy era of the early years in the 40 ABY of Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi, since there's a huge gap in between. So if you guys don't know, research, study up on that. I am not revealing who I'm gonna I don't even know who I'm gonna add, but so I can't really reveal. But stay tuned for that, because I wanted to give, like a lot of the eras, like, OT to the early New Republic to the later New Republic combined with New Jedi Order, and then now adding into Legacy. So that will be the final one. And then the top 4 from those polls that you guys voted on will be voted on after. So I don't know. I think I'm still gonna have during the holidays, I might take a week off. I'll let you guys know. I'm looking at the calendar right now. So the 22nd will be the next one. And the 29th is the last Thursday of the month. No, I won't have any pauses between then. So the 22nd will be the Legacy poll votes. And then the 29th will be the top 4. So stay tuned for that. Unless anything changes, that's the schedule here for Coffee Chat. And of course, if there's any lore that you want to discuss or recommend, get a hold of me here on YouTube or even on Twitter and say, hey, let's discuss blah, 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 blah. And then, because it doesn't have to necessarily go with the Cringe Factor article, which, usually if I have 2 different topics separate from the Cringe Factor article, then we have more to discuss lore-wise, right? I just decided to discuss Anakin since this is a huge point, a huge topic to discuss when it comes to this article. And then we did, a little bit about the rogues and stuff. And a little bit about the grandchildren of Anakin. So if there's anything you want to talk about, fuck you, Soul Assassin. See, I told you it's a choice to be an asshole. And here we go. He's proven that to me. Thank you so much, Soul Assassin, for coming in late and modding. He always knows how to pull my change, yank my change or whatever. What's chat? Is it coffee or calf? It's calf. I keep following. I changed the name to calf. I keep saying coffee. So calf chat. There we go. So, however, yeah. So if there's anything, you guys can even say it before we leave here. What do you want to discuss in future coffee chat or calf chat lore chats? Part of the program here. So let me know. Calf chat. I will get it straight. Anyways, you guys have a good rest of Thursday. As in caffeine. Yeah, calf is the word for coffee in Star Wars. So it's a long time coming to rename this. I should have just called it calf from the beginning, so I wouldn't be going through this, but it makes you guys laugh. It does. Let's see here. And the Sentinel's laughing. And let's see here. Time for 8 hours of sleep and a bowl of Cookie Crisp. Oh, sounds good. Sometimes breakfast for dinner is just what a person needs, right? So thank you guys again. And again, stay tuned for a coming video of introduction of art of Star Wars. The first introduction of the artist will be of Ralph McQuarrie, and then going into the other artists, and then finally going and breaking down some of the arts, the concept arts of Star Wars, beginning, of course, with the movies, because that's where Star Wars began, right? We could say the novels did come out before the actual movies, but when it comes to visuals and stuff, the movies is what delivered first. So again, stay tuned for that. Ralph McQuarrie introduction video coming up soon for the Art of Star Wars series. I'm looking forward to it. And then we'll also discuss Art of Star Wars in CAF chat. I corrected myself there. And, we'll take the conversation from those videos, those documentary or educational videos, into CAF chat to have further discussion, because I think that's another great topic to talk about in here. And as an artist, of course, I think it's fun. So bear with me. Hopefully I make it interesting for you guys. So stay tuned for that. And I don't think we're going to have spacing this Friday. So Tim is settling into his new home and setting everything up. And so stay tuned for the announcements on Twitter with that. And of course, I will share in the community page here on YouTube and my community page on Twitter as well. So you guys have a great Thursday. May the Force be with you. And again, throw in there any topics you want to discuss. That is original Star Wars, not Disney. And I will consider and make a shout out, like saying so-and-so recommended. And so we're talking about this. So thank you guys again for tuning in. And may the Force be with you. And have a great day.
Prepare yourself for Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire. The evil Empire has struck back with a vengeance. And a new villain, the crime lord Shizor, schemes to replace Darth Vader as the Emperor's second-in-command. With Han Solo held frozen in carbonite by bounty hunter Boba Fett, it's the rebellion's darkest hour. Now, join Jedi warrior Luke Skywalker, hard-charging Chewbacca, and go undercover with heroic pilot Dash Rendar and his booming Outrider. But can Han Solo be freed and Shizor be stopped? Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire. Look for the authentic figures and vehicles from Kenner.
Another happy landing.